is Johnny Coleman, and I am a installation artist who works with narrative. What Crossing the Water is dealing with for me, what I'm attempting to deal with is imagining the liminal space between just this one little boy. Lee Howard Dobbins was a 4-year-old child who was accompanied by a group of 8 women, his adopted mother, her daughters, and her granddaughters. And they all left a plantation, one of the Dobbins plantations in Mason County on the Kentucky side of the Ohio River. They made it across the river. They made it station to station all the way up to Oberlin. But when he got there, he was too sick to continue on. So he was left with a family, and the other 8 continued on because it was 1853. Fugitive Slave Act would not allow them to safely settle in Oberlin. So they continued on to Canada. But the little boy who was sick, the intention was for him to continue with the next group of fugitives heading north. Oberlin is 15 minutes south of Lake Erie. So they almost made it. He was sick, he died, and this piece is imagining the transition for him from a tragic life, brief tragic life, to that slipping through to return, Crossing the Water is a reference to crossing the Ohio River. It's a reference to the aspiration of crossing Lake Erie, and it's a reference directly to his transition from this life to the next as a spirit. For this piece, I spent about 4 or 5 days in the archives at the Kentucky Gateway Center in Maysville. So literally the landscape that this took place, I was there. And I spent hours driving and looking. I went to the census. I identified, like I said, 5 Dobbins families, but I ended up in town in those archives. Driving back across the bridge, it just struck me for some reason in a different way than I had realized before that this group crossed the river on a boat. The bridge I was on didn't exist. So they crossed the river on a boat, and it struck me that I needed to do a boat. So what I saw in my head was a boat that's as light as a kite, and I'm not a boat builder. So I started researching and looking, and I found a boat builder who passed back in the mid-'80s, Platt Montford, who designed these skin-on-frame boats and then skinned them with a dacron, a synthetic material that when heated, it shrinks and then shrinks around these very, very fine stringers and ribs. And, he can hold it out in one hand. Certainly a child could hold this boat out like that. The piece kind of just kept, kind of organically calling for a specific material, specific gestures, specific kind of feel. The whole thing is about a feel. I had no idea where I was going to be able to get the sound of geese, Canadian geese, separate from Interstate 80 or 480 or some state route. I hiked into this reserve and I just sat down. I turned the mic on, opened the software, set the recorder down, and waited. Probably about an hour later, 2 geese flew to the south of me, and they were calling. And then they circled back to the north and east, and then a whole flying formation flew right over me, and I got that. Everything just I needed this image. It already existed. I just had to go find it and then work from there. This opening I really enjoyed. People were really warm. It was such a blessing. It just kind of came together. So I really enjoyed last night, and I felt like people were really responsive to the space. I go back with spaces to 94, 95. I think the first solo show that I did in Cleveland was at Spaces, at the old Spaces around the corner. This process here has been incredible the whole way for the whole residency. But this piece in particular, it just reminded me of what's important for me in terms of my practice and at working as an artist. It's going to help to propel me just in terms of being more intentional about saving time, carving time out for me to do my work. Because this process served as a reminder in a big way that this is really, really important to me. You just got to be open, be willing to talk to people. I was never going to find that green oak unless I got out and walked through some mud and went and talked to some people. So much of my process is about getting out and being in the landscape and talking to people.
Mm-hmm.